I didn't want to make a list, but I made a list. So here's the list that I didn't want to see. And so I went, what if I just break the window now on the first floor? And then I look out there and there's a ductwork and you can just walk out onto the ducts and then walk straight down.
It was early access, and I knew that it was going to improve. But at the time, when I played it, I was like, this is not great, and I am sad.
Grading games, it's like, what's the criteria here? Is one non-functional, just crash every time you tried to start the game and you couldn't play it at all because like that games can get a 1.
If you go to an art exhibit, good luck trying to explain to me why a Monet is better than a Picasso, and trying to explain to me like the merits of both of those and how they weigh against each other. Alex, how is 2025 treating you so far?
I'm alive.
Yeah, we're a quarter into the century. That's something.
25 can't come fast enough.
Yes, exactly. Well, don't worry, we're going to be dead by then. However, sorry, spoiler, we don't know for sure. Anyway, hi everybody and welcome once again to the 2025 version of Total Pebble Knockdown. I am Nathan.
I am Alex, I guess, still in 2025.
We have not changed our names. We are just older. That's all. It's about that time of year where normally over on Citanium Mine, I would do a best to worst list of all the games that came out in 2024 that I had played during the year. That is something that I've done for many years, I think since 2019, 2018, something like that. Because I play a lot of like older things, but I do, get around to playing newer games. And I like to try and get some things when they come out immediately. It's usually like a big to-do to like put them in order. And the thing about it is that the more I thought about it and the more time has gone on, as people probably have already figured out, I have not made that list. And what I eventually realized was there was a reason I probably wasn't making that list, is that I never felt good about how that list was organized. And so I kind of have made the decision just not to do a best to worst list this year. This is going to be the first time.
So they're all the worst.
Yeah, they're all the worst or they're all the best. I wanted to talk about that because I think it really does discuss the idea of like how we rank or how we put a number value or a score on games, which, everyone likes to do, but I think it's harder and harder for me as time goes on.
I don't generally do that.
No.
I know we talked about like the games that we played, like year in review, for instance, with like our most played games on Steam. Even that's not a great metric for that because I may have played like several hundred hours of No Man's Sky last year, for instance, but it does not mean that that would be the game I would say was the best game of the year that I played, for instance. Time spent in a game does not always translate to actually like feeling like that game deserves to be the one that you said that you enjoyed the most or was the best. Sometimes games just are time sinks.
Yeah, and that doesn't really lead to, like, my list is a good example of that. It's a relatively short list this year, too. I usually have, like, 30-something games on this list. I only had 18. And there's a few reasons for that, and there were some really good games that I kind of wanted to be able to play before I put them on. It's usually why I never have them out, like, at the beginning of the year. But then I either tried them, never went back to them, or it was like I shelved them. So, like, there are several games that were never on the list, like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I have played it for the first few levels. I, however, have not played the whole thing. And I was like, I can't really see my way to putting it on the list, because I haven't really played through it.
But it looks so great, I hear.
I love how it looks. I love it is a pretty game. I've said that before. The second you start playing it, You just look around that map. You could spend so long in that jungle that comes out of the Raiders of the Lost Ark. You're going through the jungle where you have to go into the temple, and it's from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you're there. And I probably spent 3 times as long as that level is supposed to be, because I had to go around and look at everything, because it looked so good. And I probably, yes.
That's like, I was trying to play a bit of Space Marine 2 with a friend of mine, and they were like, why are you trying to rush me? I'm trying to look at things. I'm like, I'm not trying to rush you, but I'm going to let you know right now. The longer you stand around doing nothing and looking at things is fine. But be advised that more enemies will spawn in to fight.
Yeah.
And so, keeping yourself moving in the mission is paramount to not getting overwhelmed and failing the mission.
Yeah, it's not the game for that. What I would say is I had to go and stop and smell the digital roses, is basically what happened.
They did add a photo mode.
Thank God.
Single player for that.
This is why you always need photo modes. It's very important.
But, I mean, it is a very good-looking game, and I get it, but, like, co-op, you not have time to do it.
Yeah, that
we
is
don't
one
have
of those...
the ammo for this.
Yeah, I know. And it's not that the game doesn't play well, but, you know, you really... You want to look at it because I was so impressed with like how they did light diffusion and the textures on the ground and on the leaves and every little aspect of it. It was just fantastic, and I did not expect it. I recently started playing Balatro, which came out last year, that is probably, had I been aware of it, probably would have ranked fairly high. I don't know if I would have considered it as much of a big deal as a lot of people, but I totally understand the appeal. At some point, maybe I'll talk about it in more depth, but there was Nine Souls. Again, I didn't even bother to put it on the list. I tried it, and I was like, this isn't working for me. I understand where people are coming from when it comes to Nine Souls, but I just couldn't. It wasn't working for me. It really didn't gel in the same way. Overthrown. Great example of this. It's in early access. It's still developing. I played several hours of it, but I can't really put it on the list. Again, so many of these are like, I can't put them on the list. Because even to just start doing the list. I tried Wild Frost. I tried For the King 2. Again, I didn't even bother putting them on the list, because it's like I didn't play enough of it, and I don't know if I really can make a good judgment on it. And I was talking to you before the show that there was also a lot of like student projects and free ones that they had put out there just that are free on Steam, and some of them I liked, some of them I was not fans of, but I felt like it was weird ranking them, because again, you're taking these student projects that are small devs that just want to put their work out there to show people, and you're trying to compare them to some AAA releases and some major game studio releases, things that that are made for profit for people to actually put out there as artwork for people to buy. And so what happened is, after I took out everything that I didn't think was supposed to be ranked as a game anymore, that I couldn't really rank as a game, I only had 18. And then I started looking at my 18, and I started realizing that the ones that are at the top and the ones that are at the bottom, this year more than any other, were closer in proximity to how much I liked them than practically every other year, where I had very definitive ones where it's like, I don't like this at all, this is awesome. This year it was like there were games that were pretty good, and I enjoyed them, and then there are games that didn't really care for. But the span was a lot closer. For people who are wondering, I guess I'll just kind of explain what the list is, because we might as well get into that real quick, about what the list is. And be advised that when I tell you what this list is, of these 18 games, one of the big reasons why I didn't want to do it is because I still don't really like how they are ordered, and I couldn't figure out how to properly order them. But let me just kind of go through, I
didn't want to make a list, but I made a list, so here's the list that I didn't want to make.
Here's the list that I was never happy with, but so you understand the reference point, I wanted to explain what the list currently is, because somebody's going to ask. So I want you to understand. Number 1 on my list was Nimrods. Number 1 on my list was Nimrods, and number 2 was Pesticide Not Required. These are probably not the games most people had on their list at the top.
I don't think your list needs to be anything close to other people's.
No, it really doesn't need
And
to
at
be.
some point, I think we should talk about games media.
And how games media actually views this kind of thing, or what they promote. Because I guess shortly on that topic is just the idea that the corporatization of media is one of the bigger problems I have with like the market itself. And I think that's kind of the reason why my top 2 ended up being like Nimrods and Pesticide Not Required. Like, because those are very different than mainstream games. Those are indie titles. Those are small devs that built these things. And I guess I feel the passion of the art come through it more. But that's kind of... But then it's hard to mesh that with the 2 that come after this, which are Palworld and Helldivers 2. Because...
Which one of them, again, is technically an indie
no,
company, Palworld.
they're not.
They
But...
are.
Yeah.
They're their own publishers and developers.
Right. And it's interesting.
But they have a lot of money.
Yeah, they do. Well, especially now. Now they do. But those were also 2 huge releases from the year, from the beginning of 2024. The first 2, a lot of people might not have even heard of. And so then I get into this problem of like, okay, how do I determine like how much I like this thing compared to how much I like this other thing? And the criteria keep changing about what I like about them.
Yeah, you put way more hours into Palworld than you ever did in Helldivers.
Yeah, absolutely, and far more hours than I put into either of these other 2 games that I ranked above that. This is fun though. I put at 5 because I think it's at this point where I'm like, I'm just throwing everything against the wall. I put Oh Dear as number 5. Because
super simple game. Like, the art wasn't off the charts, the gameplay wasn't off the charts, but it was fun.
I think the only reason why I had it that high was mostly because in the moment when you're playing with other people, it is just the craziest fun time that you have. Even though on its own, it really doesn't have the merits of a lot of other games, even the ones that I would talk about later here. Number 6, again, hard to compare these next to each other, but it's Little Kitty Big City, which is not a long game at all, not a complex game at all, but has some fun platforming elements. It's having a good time with its characters. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like Untitled Goose Game, but not so many asshole animals in it. Like, that was kind of a thing. And I was like, oh, okay, this is neat. You get to play a cat, obviously. You get to jump up giant skyscrapers. That's fun, you know? You learn how to climb higher when you collect fish in the world, and you can complete the game in like 5-6 hours, and pretty much see everything there is to see. Way less than a lot of these other ones that I put time into. Shadow of Doubt, I put on here, and you saw me play Shadow of Doubt. I played Shadow of Doubt more afterward because I was like, okay, maybe I'm not playing it right. Like I
you weren't when you played it on the
I
live
was
stream,
not.
for sure.
I was not enjoying it in the way I thought I should be enjoying it, because it is like an immersive sim.
When you played it after the live stream, did you enjoy it more because you were treating it more like an immersive sim?
You know, I think I did, because what happened during the live stream is I was trying to go by what the game wanted me to do to do the casework and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And when I played it afterward, I was like, let me try a thing where I actually treat it like the kind of immersive sim that I'm used to, where I just kind of go around and see what I can do and find out like what you can do. And then I'm like sneaking into offices, and I'm like getting onto computers and stuff, and I'm like talking to all these different people, and I'm getting all of these upgrades and stuff to my character, and I'm finding like back roads and ways to sneak into rooms, and then it's like, okay, well now see this is much more entertaining for me when I'm not trying to play the game the way they explicitly ask me to play it.
And to be fair to that, they weren't explicitly saying that you had to play it a certain way, but they were like, here's your case. Here are the things you kind of need to do, like, to learn it. But it wasn't like, do these a specific way. Because, like, I had a case, one of my characters that took place on, like, the first floor of one of these apartment buildings. And, like, I had to go in, and I was like, I know from doing the tutorial a few other times, I'm like, I know as soon as I go in here and I start doing things, like finding the prince, the police are gonna come knock and you gotta make an escape because they're trying to like catch you. And so I went, what if I just break the window now on the first floor? And then I look out there and there's a ductwork and you can just walk out onto the ducts and then walk straight down. So I was like, alright, well I'm gonna break this window first and then I'm gonna go do the things, and then I just escaped and stole a katana with me. I'm like, I'm just on the first floor, perfect. I'm just out and out. And then I came back and the window was boarded up. But yeah, when you were playing it on the live stream, I was like, I feel like you're taking this as if you have to do things like right, but like it's an immersive sim, and I feel like you're not treating it like it's an immersive sim.
Yeah, and once I did that and I stopped worrying so much about the casework part of it, I had a lot more fun. And like I started doing some of like the side quest stuff that wasn't really like the main mission kind of thing,
Yeah.
And that was more fun. So anyway, I put more than the time that we were on stream into it, but
Okay.
So I appreciate it on that level. Not necessarily something I'm going back to, but yeah.
'Cause I thought you'd enjoy it because you enjoy immersive sims. So
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've started to realize that sometimes when people say it's an immersive sim, it's I don't know if it's necessarily what I would get out of an immersive sim. But I think that's what I got concerned with when it came to Shadow of Doubt. But then when I started to realize that it does have those elements, and when you interact with those, it becomes much better, which is why which was why I put it as high as I did. I think I put it in as my junk food game is Break the Empire, which was after this, and again, so small that most people wouldn't have even seen it. But I put that there. I had Botany Manor and Lightyear Frontier as 9 and 10, which, again...
played some of Lightyear Frontier.
Yeah. So you're a little familiar with that.
It was okay.
It's fine. Yeah.
But, like, I played it a bit with Ray, and I was like, this is fine, this is okay.
Yeah.
And then I kind of was like, I don't really want to play more of it, though.
Right. It's not that. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a cozy game. I played quite a few hours into it, but it was just one of those games that realistically didn't work in the same way as a lot of it. I guess I just didn't have as much of an experience of the world building and the cohesiveness of it, or I got as invested in it as a lot of other games in this genre. Botany Manor is a really interesting little puzzle game where you're exploring this manor and learning how to, basically make these flowers bloom that all have puzzles associated with it. My biggest criticism was mostly that there's just a lot of backtracking and you don't walk very fast, so, you just kind of have to deal with that. But overall, it's like, well, they did try something really interesting with this, and I do kind of like that genre, but it's so tricky. Again, back to my original point about how you rank this. When you think about it, I had to just go with my general instinct of like, did I enjoy this more or this more in general? Like, all things considered, in an all-rounder. And I moved stuff around this list probably 5 times. Beyond that, I had Brotato, which is fine. Like, this is where it's like, these are fine, I just don't know how fine they are. Brotato, Deep Space Cache, which is very short. It's only like, I think I played through to the end in like under 2 hours. And it has idle qualities to it, and you mine asteroids, basically. Creatures of Ava, which is
Oh, I've seen that.
it's again, interesting idea for a game. You're basically capturing animals because you're on a rescue mission. It's like a dying world. You're trying to analyze the animals and stuff like that, and interacting with the species. Kind of a different version of like an open world where you have to learn these different kinds of skills and open up new pathways and stuff. Little Zelda-y in that regard. But again, it was like I get it. I just didn't feel it. Like I didn't connect with it as much as some of the other games. Cozy Keep, which is kind of like Ale and Tail Tavern, but it's more about building a shop, so it's a little more Moonlighter-y. I swear, this side note, I swear that if we looked at like Ale and Tail Tavern and a few of these others and Cozy Keep, I think the landscape is exactly the same. Like I swear the main building and the outskirts, if I did a side-by-side comparison of what the landscape looks like, I don't know if people could pick it out, because it
might just be the same.
I think it's the same basic assets, and they had different games made out of it. At least they tried to do something a little different with all of them.
Yeah.
But Super Mining Mechs, pretty straightforward. You just mine ores, but you go to different landscapes to do it. Galacticare, which is sort of like a hospital management thing, but with aliens.
Okay, so it's 2 Point Hospital, but aliens.
It is, actually. It's very... In fact, that's what I was thinking of when I was playing it. This is 2 Point Hospital, but in space. And I was not a huge fan of 2 Point Hospital, and so this is another one where it's like, I was like, yeah, got it. I do space things, and I make space rooms for space ailments that don't exist. Great. Spend a bunch of time in it, never really connected with it. It's like, boy, there's a lot you have to do in order to make this work. And then I'd have these moments where like all of my patients just started dying for reasons I did not understand because of a metric I've never heard of before. And then this is where we get down to the last two on the list, and this is also very tricky for me because I had Stalker 2 on here, which I didn't feel very fair doing that anyway because it was so early in. It was early access, and I knew that it was going to improve. But at the time, when I played it, I was like, this is not great, and I'm sad. Like, I'm sad. Even though I know the game's a lot better than that, and probably is even at this point. And then the one that I put at the bottom was Skull and Bones. Because even though, like, I can even say positive things about Skull and Bones, about how I think that the landscape that they made was really nice. There's some beautiful, like, photography that you can get when you're up on the mast when it's a storm, and you can get some beautiful pictures of the landscape in that. But in the end, I think my biggest criticism was it is a worse version of a game that Ubisoft made 10 years ago. And
well, it's also, I mean, you know how you're saying it's weird to compare like student projects to AAA games and all that stuff?
yes.
Well, you're comparing top of your list Nimrods to bottom of your list quadruple A.
I think the quadruple...
Skull and Bones.
Honestly, the quadruple A promotion was probably another reason I wanted to put it so low. It was just the ostentatious nature of a studio to even proclaim that, and my general protest against those framings.
I wouldn't have put it on my list at all. I would have been like, notable dishonorable mention.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are dishonorable mentions that I could have probably made. That, again, I just didn't play long enough to even say that I would put it on. But, you know, that was where I was at. And so there's a few obvious problems with making a list like that. The one is that I'd probably move those around further before I actually got around to making the list. Because that list feels janky. There's a lot of problems with, like, how some of those games don't really make sense being as low as they are. by comparison to others that I put higher at one point. But then also the problem, that is really what I wanted to discuss, which is that trying to rank games, especially when they're in such disparate genres, is really tricky because you're getting different things out of them. When I play Nimrods or Pesticide Not Required, I think the reason why they rank so high for me was mostly because I really got in love with the idea of the Survivors format of being able to do a bullet heaven, and it's fun, and you can pick it up and you can play. But it doesn't have a very interesting storyline or any storyline at all, and it's not supposed to. The reason why Pal World is so high up there is because I had played so much of it, and it did do a really good job at game loops, Helldivers 2 is up there because it does a great job at having these big, epic battles and creating and doing world building. It actually does a great job at world building in that. And super fun to play with other people. But as we go down this list, they're all there for different reasons, whether they succeed or fail. I think this is the problem that you have when you start to, try to rank or try to give grade scores to things.
That's why I've never done it.
Right. And it's also the reason... it's also the reason I don't know if I can accept it when I see the grade scores. Like, if you look at IGN, right? They've bounced back and forth between how they rank and, if they're going to do, 6.5 or if they're doing straight 6s or whatever. And that gets into
the argument people make all the time where it's if it's less than a 6, then it's not worth even reviewing kind of deal or whatever people say.
Right.
It's if that's the criteria, then do a 1 to 5 or a 1 to 4. It's 1 to 10 means nothing if you're not going to give anything lower than a 7.
The thing that's really odd about those, I feel like a lot of people will just look at the number score of something and then they will just take that as, in a vacuum, as to how good the game is. And it's weird, because if you were to go to an IGN or a GameSpot or any of those, and you were to look at how they rank games, you're going to find some odd bedfellows where you kind of go, how is it that this game could have the same ranking as this game, even though when we get to, best of the year, they're nowhere close to each other on the lists. And it's because a lot of times, if I remember correctly, IGN has talked about how, when we're reviewing a puzzle game, we're kind of reviewing it based on, other puzzle games. We're doing that. If we're doing an action-adventure game, it's kind of grading it on what it is in that genre and how well it does it in that genre. But you can't compare those two to each other very easily.
You can't compare an open world action adventure game that comes out now to be well, what's this rated versus Skyrim?
Skyrim, I believe, got a very high rating, and also I think Dr. Mario had gotten a high rating. Yeah. And when it's yeah, sure, because of what they do, but that doesn't really mean that it makes sense to put them up against each other and say that they... I
don't know. I've never been one to really rate games that way or be able to rate anything that way, because people are they're what do you rate this? 1 to 10? I'm I don't know. I don't really do rating scales. It's good. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the best thing ever? No. But it's grading games. It's what's the criteria here? Is 1 non-functional? Just crash every time you tried to start the game and you couldn't play it at all because that games can get a 1. Does getting a 10 mean that you were in love, obsessed with it, that every single mechanic worked, was flawless, everything was perfect, every visuals are epic? What's a 10 mean then? I've talked about before, especially with Ray, where I go and I'll play a game and I'll try a demo of a game and I'll get the game or whatever, and I'm sure I've talked to you about it too, and probably on the show. But I will know rather quickly if a game is something I'll enjoy or not.
Sure.
Even though I was telling you I was playing the demo for a game, and the first thing I did is I go into the settings and I check, I turn down some of the volumes because master volume is always up way too high. But I check, does it support my native screen resolution automatically? Does it just do my 25 50 by 1440p?
Yeah.
If so, good. If not, I change it. What qualities is it set at? Change, turn off motion blur, check all that stuff. So I go through that. Like, if a game has all those settings right at the get-go, it's like, all right, cool. You've already made me happy, because there's a lot of games that are like decent quality that don't have that lower back-end quality sometimes.
Right.
For me, it's I'll go and I'll be like, all right, well, I'm a half hour in and I don't really care for this game, for this, that, or the other. So like maybe a game like that where it's like I'm no more than 40 minutes in and I'm already sitting there going,
Right.
Like, what would I give that? I wouldn't give it any higher than what, a 4 maybe?
Yeah.
It'd be like, game started, had options that were okay, playable, but like didn't interest me, wasn't fun, and quit playing before an hour. It's like, I'm not going to give that a high score.
They made a game that ran. That's pretty much...
Made a game with ran. Bare minimum 2 out of 10.
Yeah, really, it's realistically. A good example of this, too, is like the 2K sports games and stuff like that. Is that you'll see them on any of these channels. They'll get... On any given year, they'll probably get 7s or 8s. I can't put them up against a 7 or an 8 that's in an action adventure or an RPG or a survival crafting game. It's not going to be the same thing, even if they have the same score. And if you can't objectively look at them that way, because it's for whatever the genre is. I can say that Helldivers 2, in terms of like that squad-based like drop zone gameplay, is like one of the best examples I've seen. But that doesn't mean that it's the best out of all the games I play. In similar fashion, I could go down this list and I could say, this is a really good puzzle game. Like, Botany Manor is a good puzzle game. But in comparison to every other genre that I put on here, it gets pulled down the list quite a bit. Because that genre by itself, in a vacuum, it does great. But outside of that vacuum, it's going to have problems. And this is also where I wanted to talk about at least one of those free student project games. Because I did have a few of them, and some of them were fine, and I enjoyed them. But there was one that I played that's a great example of this, which is Lake Minnewaska. Lake Minnewaska is a very, very straightforward game. Practically a walking sim, but it's a walking sim where you're on a boat and there isn't really walking. The whole idea of the game is that you're this fisherman who is going out onto the Lake Minnewaska, to catch fish that his daughter always talks about, and you're going through his daughter's like scrapbook, and you're hearing her on the radio. And it's a very short game where you basically do this very straightforward fishing game. You collect the fish. It's like 5 different spots, and it kind of like wraps up the story of what's actually happening. And it's got voice actors. It's got really nice visuals. You can tell there was a whole team of like students that worked on this. They got some people to do the voicing for it. It's all well done. Probably takes you all of about 30 minutes to play the entire game. As an overall experience for a walking sim, it succeeds really well. I don't know if I could still, however, put it above something like a Helldivers 2.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not going to work for that genre. But for what it does, you'd have to say, like, did it do a better job than Botany Manor at what it did, or that even Brotato did for being a bullet hell. Like, I don't know how you would really rank that. I'd have to rank it against other games that were also similar narrative based, like walking sims.
Did it do a better job than Firewatch?
I don't know if it did. I guess what I would say is that's a hard one for me. Firewatch is a much more in-depth experience, and like What Remains of Edith Finch, again, that's a really high one up. But did it do a better job than Dear Esther? Yeah, probably. Like it's at this point where I'm kind of like, it comes in, it leaves, and it does it in really efficient fashion, where you get exactly what's going on with the story, and it has just enough gameplay to keep you through, but it's all, you're able to play that entire game. Lake Minnewaska, you can play entirely without even having a keyboard in front of you. You can do it all by mouse, like the entire game. Very straightforward, very easy to understand. But does it do as good a job as any of the other games that I've been talking about? I don't know. Like, in a vacuum, it does fine. Galacticare, as far as, like, management sims go, it's probably fine. But when I put it next to all of these other genres, I don't really know if I care that much about the genre. And so it gets bogged down because of that. And this is all basically to just say, it's really difficult to try and assign a specific value to a game. And it's all subjective. It's all subjective for who's making the list, who's reviewing it, their personal opinion. I always kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. Like, when you see somebody rank or review a game, you have to kind of know what they like and what they prefer to play, because chances are, if you're watching somebody, for instance, who really likes narrative and likes atmosphere, you're probably not going to them to review a Vampire Survivors.
Probably not.
They're not gonna get a lot out of that.
My trick is I don't go to people to review games a lot of the time.
True.
With the exception of the ones I've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was pre-show, but like Splattercat, because it's first impression reviews, his thoughts as they happen, kind of.
Yeah.
So you're getting the gameplay and the thoughts as they happen and reactions to things as they happen. I like that, because I don't want someone to sit there and play a game and then come back and write a review.
Yes.
About the game.
Yes.
That feels a lot more like you're filling a word count, or you're filling a time crunch, or you're just trying to fill the space. You're like, what can I say about this game?
Yes.
But when you're doing it kind of like a live thing, I know it's recorded previously, but when you're kind of playing the game and then talking about it as you play it, it's very much more an honest to God what you're thinking right then.
Right.
Something happens, you react to it, that's the reaction you had. You don't have to go back and say, yeah, well, I didn't like this, and then reflecting on it and like trying to make it sound good. It's just, you're saying the thing.
Right. I think one of the problems I would have with doing something like the way Splattercat does is that I could give you first impressions of the game, which we might actually be trying in the very near future. But I also have this thing where I like to be able to kind of like sit with something and maybe come back to it later and determine if it's the kind of game that you return to. I find that that's actually a really valuable thing for me, if there's games that I can return to. And then there are those games that are really great because I can't return to them. I think that's like, I've talked often about like Spiritfarer. Spiritfarer is one of those games, every time I think about picking it back up, it's like, I can't. I legitimately can't pick it up because it feels so final when you get to that, because it does such a good job at doing its narrative. And that's the thing, is that like games are weighed, like any art form, are hard to judge against each other. It's very hard. If you go to an art exhibit, good luck trying to explain to me why a Monet is better than a Picasso, and trying to explain to me like the merits of both of those and how they weigh against each other. I would have a hard
Art's
time.
Subjective anyways.
Again, yeah, art is very subjective in that regard.
I did go to an art exhibit this last year. In September. We went to the what is it? I forget the name of the museum in Philly. There's one piece of art. I don't know if I shared it. I think I might have shared it. It was the pole and the light ring at the bottom of it, leaning up against the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Modern art.
Modern art, yeah. Modern art.
And I was like, this is actual art, and I kind of hate that it is.
Yeah, I get what they're doing.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. It's like...
I'm not...
I'm gonna guess it's the Philadelphia Museum of Art you went to.
No, it's in Pittsburgh.
Carnegie Museum of Natural History?
Yes, we went
Okay.
to the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. Yeah, we went there, and like I did see actual really good art, like I think some Picasso's, Monet's, Van Gogh's, and stuff like that. It was really cool. And like, but the modern art,
And modern art is one of those things that's like more a statement than an art piece, as far as I've always seen. Like, you remember when people got really mad about the banana that was taped to the wall? But somebody was saying, here's the thing though, that's brilliant because you've never stopped talking about the banana that's taped to the wall. It created such a statement and a conversation and a dialogue around what it even meant that we've never stopped talking about the banana taped to the wall.
Listen, I'm not an art critic, but like,
Yeah,
I'd rather art that looks nice, that I can enjoy aesthetically, than art that does not look nice and is just there to make you talk about it.
I think I like art that makes me think about it. Like,
I
that
don't.
makes me okay. We're different in that regard. I like
we know we're different in that regard. I don't
We
like
are.
to analyze and think about these things,
Yeah.
including art or other forms of art.
if I'm looking at a piece of art and I'm like, what did the artist want to tell me, or like what do I feel about it? Like, I feel like it succeeded. If I look at a piece of art and I'm kind of like, oh, I get it. I wonder why I'm doing it. One thing I studied when I was back in high school was an art movement that I still to this day do not quite understand, but I find fascinating, which is Dadaism. Have you ever heard of Dadaism?
Yeah, I don't remember what it is.
It stands for hobby horse, but it was anti-art. It was an anti-art movement and artistic and literary movement that emerged in response to the disasters of World War II and the rise of modern media and machine culture. And artists sought to expose accepted conventions in order and logic. And when you look at it, it kind of is the beginning of the modern art movement as we think about it. It's there to like not look like art. It's definitely a very an art movement against the establishment of art movements. And in some ways, going back to video games for a second, I think that there's even video games that do this. I think it's like the I Am Bread or stuff like that feel like they're a video game that's an anti-art movement against video gaming, like that kind of thing. Or Banana, I'd say the clicker game. Like these are games that don't feel like games anymore.
Yeah. Or games as art, like LSD Dream Emulator.
Again, how do I posit that into a list if I were to rank? Like, one of the nightmare scenarios for me would pretty much be trying to rank every game that I've ever played and put it onto an ordered list. I've done like my favorite 20. That's something that I've done last year or the year before, and that's something you can do, because I can say, like, from my own perspective, these are 20 games that if I needed to be stuck on an island and this is all you gave me to play, I'd be happy. Like, I'd be happy, I'd be content with that. Might want more, but this is fine. I'm good. But beyond that, it's really when you get into, like, the center. That's when the weeds really start coming in. It's like, it's easy to kind of tell, like, there's games that you just absolutely despise, and there's one that you absolutely love. It's when you get into the middle, the gray area, that it always ends up being a lot trickier. And I think that that's really the big thing. When we go back to that list as we kind of wrap up here, the ones at the top and the ones at the bottom are easier for me to make. Yeah. The ones in the middle are really tricky. It's like when Yahtzee talks about bland being like the worst kind of a game, like, you know, and sometimes the most difficult to actually wrap your head around. It's the ones in the center. And when we have stuff like a live service model, or we have ever-evolving games where everything comes out in early access, can I really say that the early access game that came out that hasn't technically been released is even released this year? That's kind of where I got with, like, Stalker 2. Really good example of that. It's like, It's coming out. We know that it's not really finished and that it's going to be rough. Is it even fair to put it on a list and say it even came out this year? I don't know. Should I have put, like, Baldur's Gate 3 on a list of best games 2 years or 3 years ago when it originally came out in early access? Is that fair? Probably not. And so, yeah, it's a really tricky prospect to try to determine what the value of a game is in its entirety, weighted against everything else. To end my thesis statement, this is the reason why I did not have a 2024 best to worst list. In previous years, it was easier. This year, it was much more gray area, and much more wide variety of kinds of games than I previously had played. And so, I don't know how other people do it. I guess, I think too much about it, and maybe I try to put, like, a lot of, like, consideration into it, and that just kind of gets to you, and you're gonna, I don't know, shrug your shoulders, throw your hands up in the air, and you just go, I can't do it. Don't try it yourself, folks. I know that a lot of people will make top 10s or bottom 10s or anything like that, but if you try to rank every game that you play in the year, it's gonna be bad news bears. I also think I was really hoping that I'd be able to eventually get around to playing, like, an Indiana Jones and Great Circle, more full, like a lot of these, so that I could put them on the list. And I never did. Alex, how do you feel about ranking these episodes of the show?
By number.
Oh, good. So basically, our best episode is number 1. And our worst episode is the one we're currently doing.
The higher the number, the better it is.
Oh, the number ascends instead of descending. Perfect. Well, then this is the best episode.
So 1 is our worst.
Oh, that doesn't sound right.
Oh.
I think that it's almost...
Roll a dice. Random number assigned to every episode.
Isn't it like a part of the myth that, like, our second episode is always the best episode? I want to say it is. I have to go back to... have to roll that beautiful beam footage and find out. However, if folks out there wanted to explore that further, Alex, where could they go for more TPK?
You can find more TPK at TotalPubbleLockdown.com.
That's right. And when you're over there, you can check out our Patreon, and you'll get early stuff ahead of the curve. You'll also get bonus features that don't make it into the regular episode. Check us out over there. And you can find us on all podcast apps known to mankind. Rate, review, and subscribe where applicable. And you can, of course, find us over on our Discord channel, which is a public Discord channel. It's just Total Public Lockdown. You can come over there and check out our gaming conversation, because that's specifically what we're talking about. Tabletop, video, and everything else in between. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And we will see you on the next one. Bye for now.